Welcome to the B-Shifter podcast. Coming at you from the AVB CTC in Phoenix, Arizona. You've got John Vance, Terry Garrison, and Nick Brunacini today. How are you gentlemen doing?
Good. I thought you were going to say you got JVTG and NB. And you were going on those acronyms.
We're on the precipice of the holidays.
That's better than having JVD.
Yes.
Hey, do you remember when Bruno, I was at a meeting once, and there were these, we were talking some special ops, and these guys were using acronyms. Mm-hmm. And Bruno said at the meeting, there's probably 20 people sitting around. He goes, okay, no more TLAs. And they were like, TLAs, what was that? He goes, 2-letter acronyms and 3-letter acronyms. No more. They don't want no more acronyms. Say the words. And he was frustrated by it because he even couldn't, because especially the special ops people, they had a lot of acronyms. So we're at the AVB, CTC. It's AM.
Not the PM.
Not PM.
Yeah. We got our TLO.
Yeah.
Yeah, the feds are really good for that, especially taking any kind of federal class, and whether it's a NIMS 700 class or whatever it is. There are so many acronyms.
Yeah, but it bleeds over to us. We were just talking before this about the ODFM, and and then we had the TRT and 957, and all of that meant something. And I need the ODFM, TRT, bivouac, bam, and.
But some of those guys, they don't even call them mom and dad. They call them MOM and DAD.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
They're really into the acronyms. Hey, he's my DAD.
Well, remember when the Shetland pony was in charge of the TRT cache?
I remember that guy.
And
short guy with a big head.
And they wanted to reassign him. But what he did is when they delivered all the TRT tools, he took all the manuals. And, I mean, it was like 3 boxes of manuals to instructions on these highly technical tools they had. And so he refused to give the manuals back, and so he always was in that position. And he figured out the guy who owns the manuals owns the spot.
The keeper of the manual.
And he did. He made it like another 2 or 3 years from captain to chief because he owned the manuals.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah.
It was the hoarding of information and power go together.
Yeah, exactly.
Now the kids can just Google it, and Chat GPT is going to tell them how to run the fire department.
But that's when you thought, when you heard information, it was usually truthful. That's not so much.
Yeah.
Remember, like the time management position within the fire department is like the MOU had like who got vacation and how much and when they could take it. And then that all kind of cooked back to one person who had been a dispatcher, got cancer, got reassigned. They made a position for her, and she managed all the vacation leave for the fire department. So people would put in, there was a form you would put in like in December for what vacation you wanted the next year.
Right, I remember they were in blocks.
Yeah, and there was like, you could have this block, like a number block and a letter block if you had more time, shit like that. So... And what she would do is she'd get all those, and then she would go in a computer program and lay out the vacation. Well, those were like the MOU vacation, and then anybody could get any open spot after that was set. So if you were friends with her, you would call up and say, hey, man, I need Christmas, Easter, my anniversary, this, that, and the other thing. And because you had been nice to this individual down the road, is you would get vacation then. So she had all the power and juice in the fire department. She was like Glenda, the bad good witch at the same time.
Was that before Telestaff?
No, it was during Telestaff. So she, and because now you're trying to manage the deployment system where you got like 550 people on duty just in your department, and then you got the surrounding ones. So there was the whole infrastructure just around daily staffing that went on, and then the leave that kind of took place behind it. So, like when we worked at South Deputy, is they did the morning staffing. So that's where you would call in to get your assignment for the day. And I mean, so you would have to figure out, you'd say, okay, I got this many openings and I got to fill them somehow. And then most of the time it was through overtime, but sometimes you'd have to like backfill things certain ways. And you had to basically interpret the MOU and then keep the city staffed.
You had, because there was people sitting out there, and if you if they thought you violated the MOU, there's another acronym, a very important one, is that, oh, yeah, man, you'd hear about it from your boss and everybody, and you're trying to do the best you can, but every once in a while you'd step on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, people knew it right away.
Well, and then, I mean, it was like backfilling AMBOs. So you're calling captains, ALS captains on an engine company and saying, hey, UCM, you're on the list to work overtime on AMBOs. We're not constant staffing today, so you have to go to an AMBO for 24 hours. Well, man, you were going to have a union meeting over that. And I mean, over half the time you tried to pull a captain off their regular engine. I'm not going. Well, you have to. You can't see him anymore. You can't do that to me. You're going to watch this, and it's not going to be pleasant. You have to do this today. That's what the rules say.
All right, what's CM?
Constant
staffing.
It's
constant manning.
It used to be constant manning.
Oh, I gotcha.
So
Okay.
I'm still stuck with CMing. And see, there was a list. So people would put in you had to put in before 10, I think. And so you'd sit down at the computer and you'd put everybody in, and then that would populate the list somehow in telestaffing of who's going to work. Yeah. So by like 5 o'clock that night, they would print out the list, and that came out of the central shift commander's office.
The next day.
Yeah. So people would know, and it would say on the list, we're this many short. If you're not on the list, we're going to be calling you. So they would know that there was, some days you would constant staff 30, 40 people. I mean, that takes a while to get all that in place. And
a lot of overtime.
Yeah, that's like and they would do, and that's kind of a city thing. So now you got the city who's like, no, we're not going to hire another class of firefighters. And you think, well, then you're going to have to put another $1 million in the constant staffing budget.
An overtime
no, we can't do that. And you're like, well, you made the MOU is you made it. Our bosses made this and said this is what we're going to do, and now you can't do that. Or we're going to talk to your boss, who's the union president. So I mean, it's kind of a weird food chain when you look at all of it, because the union president had more power than the fire chief in certain areas. Yeah. They could, because they weren't beholden to the authority having jurisdiction. I mean, shit, for 20 years. They picked the authority having jurisdiction, at least in our department. Yeah.
Yeah, the union had the votes to pick the city council.
Well, when my dad retired, the mayor was sleeping on the union president's couch. You're the landlord of the fire chief's boss's boss.
It's a comfortable couch.
Well, he didn't want to move.
Yeah, and there's a whole backstory to this, but this last week or so in Memphis, did you see the city council member that went after the fire department on their constant staffing?
No, I didn't.
And their raises. This council member, which when I watched the footage and I read the statement, I did not match the two up. I'll just say that. Last night, a Memphis city council member accused our firefighters of raping the city. And this council member used the term rape, I counted at least 5 times.
That's terrible.
And it has to do with them getting their cost of living increase. And then they were trying to get parity or get up to like market standard. And Memphis is a pretty low paid fire department as far as I know. I mean, when you look at metro areas, but several times this council member used the term rape. But it's all stuff the council signed. Like to your point, they signed the contract to give them these raises, but then the council member is going to come back and refer to them getting what they negotiated in the contract in good faith as a rape.
Exactly. So that's the problem with government, is it's run by politicians, and politicians are.
They're politicians. You don't have to describe them any more than.
Yeah, I mean, so that's what you got.
Because you couldn't think of a word that describes them better than politician.
Well, and see, on the hat, here's the next hat for everybody. Okay, I don't care what your politics are. Here's what the hat ought to say: do your job, right? Just do your job. That's what we want. Yeah. That's the problem with politics, is we don't do our job. Is we take care of ourselves and the people that actually gave us money to be where we're at now. So, it doesn't matter what form of government or society you have. If the rich, it's the same everywhere. The rich make the rules. It's the golden rule, right? That whoever's got the gold does it. So,
the last city I worked in, a city council member, she said that this whole overtime system is a scam that the firefighters had created. And it's like, I can't tell you how many times we explained it to her that it's not a scam. You have to fill the spots, hire more firefighters. And I was so frustrated with the city manager who would sit there and allow her to say that. So afterwards, I go to the city manager. It's like, hey, I'm not up there where I'm able to speak openly. I'm in the audience. Why don't you challenge her on that? Why didn't you come back to her on that and have a conversation with her? Well, he wasn't going to do that because the city council hires a city manager. But it's like you sit there, like that word rape. What's that movie where I don't think you understand what that word means? Inconceivable, right?
Yeah.
But it's like they just say whatever they say up there for drama and effect and all of that. And it's like, no, man, there's a whole
it's
lot
politics.
of people. Yeah,
They're being politics. They're trying to emit an emotional response from people to dodge accountability for what it is they're supposed to do. Right. There's a councilman here. The fire department's meeting. This councilman's pissed off because the response times in his district are too high. And who's allowed this to happen? Well, when you really look at it, he did. Because the last 7 votes to increase the budget for his district to give better standard of coverage, he voted against it. He voted against the doing that. And
no new fire station.
Nothing. No, we will not pay for this. You have to just do it. And you're like, you are an idiot. Do you understand what your job is? Your job is to make for the people who elected you in your district. This is your district, and your response times are 9 minutes now. That's what you're getting because you voted against this. Well, the people from the fire department didn't tell him that because that would be seen as being confrontational.
Disrespect.
Yeah, and you're like, no, pal, I'm going to hold the mirror up. Here you go. You voted no on this day, this day, this day, this day for these.
Yeah, you really need to.
These resources, that's why your response times. So now if somebody from the fire department shows up and tells them that works for that's not under a union, let's say, they will be dealt with however they want to deal with them. Yeah. Well, look at what happened in Los Angeles after the fires, and then somebody's got to be to blame, because politicians have to have somebody to blame. This shouldn't have happened. Well, the weather's the reason it happened. The city of New Orleans is sinking. So like in 25 years, it's all gonna be a basement. Well, there's nothing to be until you can make a city rise. It's going to sink. I mean, we don't know how to do that. We're still primitive that way. So,
well, that's why I believe that the relationship between the fire chief and the union president has to be strong. Try not to get in an argument over pissy shit because you're going to need each other. And what I always said to the people that I worked, the union president that was my partner in crime, is that I play defense. I'm trying to keep the resources we have so that they don't cut them anymore and go to 3-person staffing or do something goofy. You guys are our offense. You need to go out because you have the political clout to go out and tell that city council member, you keep it up, we're going to get a whole lot of our buddies, we're going to go through the neighborhood and we're going to put your opponent's name on a stick and put in the front yard of everybody we know, and we're going to get you out of there, and you're not going to be reelected. That's
Terry,
the offensive play.
That sounds like a lot like what's going on today on the federal level. If you don't do what we're telling you, we're coming after you. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's...
I had a board member, my first chief's job, in a public meeting, and this is the guy I refer to as Sausage Fingers. Nick's heard Sausage Fingers story before because he's a roly-poly little fat-faced guy, and in this board meeting,
he got visceral.
Yeah.
I have the image, and there's a snout on the end of it.
Oh yes, yeah. Roger Waters songs playing in the background describing it. Yeah. And in a public meeting, he referred to us hiring new firefighters because we were it was a racket.
Yeah.
This is a racket. You guys are just getting your buddies into these cushy jobs. And at the
Cushy
time, I think the
jobs.
starting pay was like $38,000 a year. It's like, yeah, it's so cushy that they have to work a part-time job in order to work this full-time job.
no.
But luckily, that guy got ran out because, again, sitting down with the firefighters and talking to them, like, we can't lose our temper, but this guy is a bad actor, and he ended up resigning his post and
Never worked a day in his life, probably.
telling his children that the fire station is where all the bad people are. He said that in his last meeting. He goes, when I drive by these fire stations, I tell my children this is where the bad people are.
Wonderful.
We had a police chief, and he said in the podcast. Well, it was talk radio before podcast, so that they had a talk radio show, and he said he made the statement that the fire department is like a big, beautiful oak tree that is severely diseased on the inside, and I need to fix it and take it down. And he was coming after the fire department. I mean, we did a Silverback thing about this back in the day, and that guy ended up. He was very disruptive. It wasn't nice. It was all mean about him, and he ended up getting run out of town. And what it was is the city council said, "Who's going to protect us from you?" And he was gone 2 weeks later. He thought, "I'm finished."
It was Joseph McCarthy.
Man,
He was a wretched, and he was constantly being litigated against by his union. And the union president pulled me over once. Driving, right? Just leaving my dad's house. I was like just graduated from high school. He pulls me over. He says, "I know who your dad is." I said, "Okay." I said, "What did I do?" He says, "Your tags are only out of date by like 3 years." Sorry. I'm in high school. He says, "Son, you need to not have expired tags. You have no idea what you're flirting with." And he got back in his car and drove off. And I told my dad, and he says, "Yeah, the police chief is kind of after us." He says, "Maybe you ought to get your tags done, son." I said, "Well, okay, Dad." Our role is to support the entire community, not parts of it, but all of it. So that's the way we view it. We have to. Like when people call 911 for the fire department, we don't ask them, "What political party are you affiliated with?" Or "What's your favorite color?" Or "What's your religion?" Or what do you identify as a human being? Or any of that. Your gender. We don't care. It's like, what's your problem and what's your address?
Nick, I'm going to tell you, when I arrived in Houston, there was an event that I needed to go to, and I'd been there about 3 weeks, and I show up and I'm in a suit. And Mayor Anise Parker goes, "What are you doing?" I go, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Where's your uniform?" And I said, "Well, I thought the appropriate was to wear a suit." She goes, "You're not here because you're Terry Garrison. You're here because you're the fire chief."
Yeah, man. This ain't a date nap you're showing up to, buddy.
And I said, "Thank you," because that's so. Every time we show up, when we represent in that costume, right?
Terry Wiles never fired, Chief, is because I would have showed up next time wearing a T-shirt, brush pants, and black boots. Yeah. I'm here in my uniform.
But I love the way she said it very nice. She says, "You're not, Terry, you're probably a nice guy, but you're the fire chief. Show up in the fire chief so you're recognizable. People know you're here.
Yeah.
And you support."
And you're going to be like the fourth guy on the stage standing in the back. You're not going to say anything. The police chief's going to be standing right next to me, and then my prosecuting attorney. That's my main team.
Well, whenever she talked pensions, we had that deal, and I've said it here before, is I never stood next to her or behind her. I said, "I can't do it as long as you're talking pensions." She says, "Okay, don't need you to then."
Yeah.
Because I couldn't help her anyway.
No, you need to. There's another.
I told her I like pensions. I have a few of them.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Well, I think all working Americans should have a pension.
I agree.
I think we should.
Well, let's get to the topic today.
What is the topic, JV? What are we talking about today?
We're talking about customer service, and one of the 8, what do we call them, functions of customer service, is to attempt to execute a standard problem-solving outcome. And what does that mean to us as chiefs, as battalion chiefs, leaders, just a generic leader within the fire service, getting that skillful, quick, all those outcomes that are, because we can have the best intentions all day long, but if we pull up and we don't know what we're doing, we have poorly trained, poorly equipped personnel that really can't execute anything. We're dropping really one of the big promises when it comes to customer service. So let's talk about that today.
Well, and we talked a little bit about this on our last podcast. We didn't talk a little bit. We talked a lot about who's doing your training and what is the focus of training, because the focus of training should be the curriculum of training, not based on whoever is in that training position, whatever is their whim. Because you see that in an organization. You get a new training chief and they go off in this direction. So training is absolutely essential to good customer outcome, right? So every aspect of training ought to have some sort of customer-centered component to it, where you talk about the customer. And I think Bruno said it. You always talk about this, Nick, is that Bruno said that he couldn't really make sense of the whole deal until he injected Mrs. Smith as
leadership. He said, I never made any sense of leadership until I put a customer in.
Yeah.
And he says, then it gave you something. He says, before the fire was our customer. And he says, a natural occurring event can't be your customer.
Right.
They don't covet your service. It's the nature. It's we're humans. Come on. So he said, until I put the customer in, that leadership meant nothing to me. I struggled with figuring out what true north was with it, right. I guess, essentially.
So I think that's where we got to start, right? So sometimes we start in the middle when it comes to customer service and service delivery. We start like on the street, right, where the guy's delivering the service, our firefighters, which is absolutely very important. But I think we should always back up and say, okay, how's the organization look at that, and how do they treat that as a priority, and is the fire chief a part of that? Because there's some fire chiefs out there, and I don't want to beat up fire chiefs every time I sit here, but there's some fire chiefs out there who don't see a part of their role as being the customer service advocate for the city. He or she needs to have customer service on their mind 24/7, sorry. And a lot of times like, well, no, that's not my job. You got to worry about the customer. I'm going to worry about the council. I'm going to worry about the budget. I'm going to worry about HR and legal and finance and all this. And really the fire chief needs to keep his focus on the customer at all time. And all those other things tie back to the customer, whereas when you're talking to finance, you should have conversations with finance about what they're funding in your organization supports the customer and supports the delivery system of the customer and supports the training system that really is about the customer. And the same thing with HR. Oh, yeah, we had an HR problem, but the HR problem, did it impact the internal customer or the external customer? And that's how we get in trouble with HR, right? Mm-hmm. Does that make sense to you?
Yep.
But I think a lot of fire chiefs, they don't look at that as one of their, and Bruno was excellent at that, because every meeting we talk firefighter safety and customer service. So the customer was always one of the focal points of every bit of conversation that we had and how you deliver. So back up, think about the fire chief's role, and we talked about the union president a few minutes ago, and the union president has to be married to that too, because the smartest union presidents will tell you that the way that their members, they call them their members, treat the customer has a direct reflection on the amount of benefits they're going to get at the end of the day, right? So they need to be brought into that too. But it's all about the customers. I wouldn't imagine a union. I remember going with the union president and a couple guys to Austin when I was in Houston to talk to some of the elected officials there. And I don't feel like we talked enough about our customers when we left, and we had conversations about that. We went in and we talked, we met with like 4 or 5 representatives that day. And driving back to Houston, I'm thinking, we talked a lot about the fire department, a lot about kind of some of the issues taking place. But if we would have made every one of those conversations focus on the customer also, at least include the customer, I think we would have had their ear a lot more.
Well, I think the major disconnect in a lot of this is, Like, fire departments are part of the infrastructure of the community. You're going to have a fire department whether you want one or not, Mr. City Manager. It's just the way it works.
Yeah.
And so you can get rid of it, and then once a big chunk of the town burns down, you're going to have to get it back. I mean, historically, that's why we exist. Now, within the last 40, 50 years, we've added a bunch of other service on top of that, EMS especially. So the fire department ain't going away. It's something people want. It delivers an essential service, the most essential service to the community. If you're done breathing and you want another shot at it, you got to call 911 and hope all the moons line up. But that's what we're here for. So I think traditionally, a lot of our members, especially leaders, view us as a core almost. Is an essential core, and they don't see a customer service because it's the community, as I protect the community. And I think that's easier for them because they once you, like when you say prevent harm, survive, and be nice, that is all encompassing. And I think that that kind of pushes against that concept that we're a core, that we're like a paramilitary organization that's more like the police than the healthcare system, let's say. Well, we're the emergency healthcare system. So I think that's where the customer comes in, is we focus on the individuals that make that community up. And some of the gaps that you see, like even tactically, the stuff we talk about all the time, fire attack versus search. Well, no, I got to search ahead. And you're like, well, why? Well, because, we have to save people. And you're like, yeah, we agree with you, but the way to do that is you kill the fire, and then, you kind of... But that concept of the core is it's like, no, I got to go in and kill the fire right now to protect the whole. Because if I don't put the one house out, it's going to become 2, then 3, then 8, then a block. So... And I've heard guys in my own department, like shift commanders, say, well, I'll burn down 3 blocks to save 1 person. I thought, you're going to burn down 3 blocks and kill 30 more people. No, that's not the way you do it. You put the fire out where you find it, and then you search around it. I mean, that's the way they raised us. So we didn't have a big problem with that internally, in the thing. So I don't know, maybe it wasn't as big a jump for us when we had our lunatic fire chief say customer service and Mrs. Smith. And most of the arguments became, well, we already do that. And he says, yeah, all I'm doing is I'm institutionalizing it. I'm going to make be nice a regular thing. You're going to be nice to everybody. It's just not the people that you agree with or you covet or whatever it is. This is what we do when we're on duty.
That whole thing, I got to jump in a little bit. So that the group of people who want to save the customer in a house fire.
We all do. We don't want anybody to die.
What I want to say about that is that I applaud them for thinking about the customer.
Yeah.
Thank you for thinking about the customer. You're exactly right. I'm agree 100% with you. How we do that, I think, is different, right? Because there are some areas where the customer is already consumed by the fire, and putting the fire out is the right thing to do early on because fires grow.
Yeah.
And you put them out when they're as small as possible. You have it, what Bruno used to say is you have a fire and it moves on a curve like this, and I think nowadays it kind of goes up this as it
almost flips back on itself.
Yeah, and then you got a timeline down here, and somewhere within this timeline we arrive. So depending on your resources, you may arrive here, you may arrive here, you may arrive here. Do the work based on that. Learn where you are on that line and where you arrived, and do the work based on that. So if you arrive up here and the people have already been consumed by the fire, put the fire out. If you arrive down here, put the fire out. It's smaller. You're gonna help the people.
Well, and you guys are talking about graduate level problems, but I think there's a big part of this country, and I'm going to drop a new acronym on you. They're FINOs, FINOs.
What is that?
Fire department in name only. that they don't actually have a fire department. You drive by a building that's not staffed and it's loaded with $1 million fire apparatus, but when the tones drop, you might get 2 or 3 people back. Or there's been a bunch of examples I've worked alongside where fire engine pulls up 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it did have 4 people on it. They put the truck into pump and they can't get water out of it. And the neighbors are out there with video, taking a video of this whole fire drill where they can't even execute a basic fire attack. And they were using a community of 60,000 people using paid-on-call firefighters without full-time staffing. And the community doesn't know any different.
No.
And most of these communities, Mrs. Smith doesn't know whether it's full-time, part-time, volunteer. They drive by a fire station and they get a warm, fuzzy feeling. Oh, they're the protectors of the community. They're going to come save me. They're going to come put the fire out. But when the tones actually drop, the response times are actually, very, very long. I have another community of 60,000 plus, 18 minutes in the middle of the night to get the first apparatus on the scene in an urban density community.
Wow.
And again, the community's out there with their phones taking video of the whole thing. They're at the city council meeting the next week. Like, what do you mean we don't have 24-hour staffing? Because this city did have full-time firefighters, but they had a mayor and a fire chief who pounded on the dais and said, we will never pay a firefighter to sleep. That's our promise to you. 10 o'clock, everyone goes home. So when the fire pops at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're getting that very long response time. And this particular community didn't even have good density for their fire stations. So I bring all that around. That's a very basic problem,
right,
but it's a big problem in this country right now because you're getting engine couples that are showing up. Yeah. And you're getting people who aren't at all skilled or trained to even get water out of the fire truck.
Vance, many of these organizations couldn't run an ambulance company.
No.
I mean, they just couldn't. I'll go you one better, though. And I read this within the last 30 days. In the state of Arizona, it's further from here. It's not urban. It's more in the wilderness. 2 communities get together, and they say, we're going to join forces, and we're going to have our own police force. Right? So they make their own police department. And it's not that long that they're in force. It's, 5-10 years, whatever. Last month, they contacted the Arizona Highway Patrol, the Department of Public Safety, and said, we're calling you. We need you to come in and protect us from this police department that we have. They're holding our city hostage in eastern Arizona. So DPS. Now, there was like 2 articles over a week. You haven't heard a thing about it since. So who knows what's going on. But, I mean, there's the case. See, again, I go back to the politicians. Well, I don't stand for this. We're not going to have this.
Yeah.
I think this is horrible that we have a paid on-call fire department. Everybody that shows up to that meeting, what? Maybe 2% of the voting populace know what's going on. Well, that's the problem today, is nobody knows who's in charge of anything, and the people that are, it's not about doing their jobs. It's about maximizing their return on their time in those positions.
And I don't want to paint a broad stroke on this. There's some great paid-on-call fire departments. There's very dedicated firefighters out there that really give a lot of themselves to protect their community. I'm not
better than we'll
about,
ever be. There's a huge range, the greatest to the worst.
But you get to a and these communities that might have 25 fire runs a year. I don't even know what your solution to having a fire department is, but I'm talking about well-developed urban communities still using paid-on-call firefighters, and the community's expectation for something more when it comes to response time and effectiveness.
Well, and I don't know. Maybe the country's hit a point where, I don't know, man, you start wading into that swamp, and it's the fire department's expected to have a response time to intervene in an emergency. That starts 4 to 6 minutes on the EMS side. That's what the benchmark is. So if you ain't got that, there's a reason for it. And in some places in the wilderness, you ain't going to have it because it's expensive. It's only the government can do it.
Yes.
I mean, see, and I think that's one thing we're looking at is the government should do a certain thing, and then private business is a whole different thing. So I think we confuse the two sometimes, and politicians, business people love that.
Confusion.
I'm going to run it like a business.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and that's what they're doing today. Is there's a bunch of trillionaires that are running things. I mean, that's where we've evolved. And whatever's going to happen next, and whoever takes over, takes over. But that's not a very efficient model. Is a government for the people versus a business running the government. That's it's not doing well so far.
So the last job I had, the city manager, one of the things he wanted to do was to cut the staffing at night. Hey,
Close stations down.
Yeah, I'll close one company down, and then another company can cover that areas because of the call volume.
And then if you go to 3-person staffing on top of that, we're going to make our nut.
Well, if he wanted to focus on call volume during the night, and I said, okay, so I went back and I got all Don Abbott's information on maydays and how maydays increase at night, and then I went and got the information on how many people actually die at night in house fires, and that's more than during the day. And it took a while to get all that information and go back to him, and he maybe didn't believe all of it, but at least I held my ground defensively, and we didn't do that because I wasn't going to do that, right? So, but that's just it. So as a fire chief, in all these situations, there's somebody who's at the top of that organization who they can only do what they can do with the resources they have, and that circle of influence they have. Terry Shields used to always say, circle of influence. And I said, what does that mean? The things that you can impact. What can you impact? So they have to have, back to the customer service piece, they got to have conversations about how what you are doing to us or taken away from us is impacting the customer service. And you got to be connected to the customer. And you can do all that great things and have the best response system and the greatest number of firefighters and all that, but if you're not solving the problem of the customer, being nice to them while they're doing that, right? We talked about that. That's the key. That's where it comes down to the management and then the task level, is you got to solve their problems right there, because she's the one that, Mrs. Smith, is the one that she gets to see how you act at 2 o'clock in the morning in her bedroom with her chubby-fingered husband who's having a heart attack in bed. And she's the one that's going to make a decision down the road. Every one of those, I know they suck sometimes. I get it. Man, we're just watching the Super Bowl and this call goes out and you go and it's like, that is an opportunity to treat somebody nice and to solve their problem. And I know it sounds so simple, and Garrison, you're
naive if you believe that.
No, you can be nice right then, right there, and solve their problems and go back. And by the way, I love football, but the score is not going to change whether you're sitting in front of the TV or not. You're not impacting that. But you can make an impact on that customer when you go. And the fire chief, if they don't make that a part of their internal marketing plan, and you're really good with talking about marketing and how you get your message out. And that's what Bruno was good at too. If you don't make that a part of every messaging, then it's a slippery slope, because it's so easy for humans to be human.
Yes.
And they're going to do what's easy for them. Well, that's what we do.
Well, the big issue, I think, is, here, let me put my glasses back on.
Those are cool glasses.
Attempt to execute a standard problem-solving outcome.
Yeah.
The issue comes when we respond on people who don't have a problem that we can solve. True. And that's, I don't know, some days that was like 3/4 of the people I rolled on when I was a task level worker bee. We talked about it with, like, before 911, everything we went on was a true emergency. Most of it was because you had to dial 7 numbers, and really, you had the magnet on your refrigerator that gave you the phone number for Crime Stop and the fire department. And then it became 911, and then it was just easier to access us. And I think cell phones, and everybody had access. And so now we're here today. This is what it is. So we roll on things that there's really not a solution for them. I mean, we can make it marginally better, maybe with like, if we actually put our time and effort to it, we could make it 2% better, where, like you're talking, they show up and they make it 100% worse.
Right.
Well, for each of us, being a member of that organization, we have a choice when we get on the scene. We can be helpful, we can be patient, or we can be rude assholes. I mean, that's kind of the thing. And in today's world, most service is left to computers, AI, and rude assholes that are people in another country that really are just kind of a stopgap. To not fix your problem, just to have somebody to talk to.
Right.
I don't know. So I don't know how that gets fixed in the outside world, but inside the fire department, when we go on the call, we should at least be nice to people. And don't just fly off the handle and tell them they're stupid and you're endangering the community every time you call us. I mean, that's not. You're not going to endear yourself to anybody. So if you need something from the community in the back end, it's almost like they call up and say, no, protect us from the people who show up here. Right. That's a bad thing.
That is a bad thing.
Yeah,
we can educate to a certain degree, and some people aren't going to get it. You're right. We can try to educate. Hey, you don't need to call us. But the second
they didn't call us though. A lot of times, it's just people driving by. Jimmy's throwing rocks at us again.
Mm-hmm.
The moment you go from education to enforcement. And a firefighter becomes an enforcer of, you're going to do it my way, we start having problems.
That's where you get complaints and the thing starts getting, and you think, if you guys would have just shown up and said, how can we help you? Here's a bottle of water. We're sorry. Here, just stay over here, or whatever it is, whatever you need to diffuse that, de-escalate. That's what we're good at, is de-escalating things.
I wonder where it's at on the bell curve, but Bruno would talk about people are calling 911 on their worst day. And they're expecting us to show up and make it better. And the people who don't abuse the system, that's maybe going to be the only time in their life they call 911. So if we show up with this bad face and we're rude and not really executing anything that's a successful outcome, that's what those people are going to come away with. And they're having a bad day, so they may not be so nice to us. And we have to be prepared for that. They're having a bad day. And the way I look at this is there's multiple flanks, right? Like if you want the fire chief to get staffing, we have to educate the customer when we talk about education on what our capabilities. Like if you get to a call, like I've been to calls before where it's like it's taken us 15 minutes to show up, and the customer's angry. By all accounts, they should be, right? They're paying taxes, and why did it take you 15 minutes? Because we only staff 2 companies, and both are tied up right now. And if we had more, I try to explain to them why the response time was the way that it was, or, I was staffing a first aid booth at a community event with part-time firefighters, and I have somebody from the community yelling at me because a new city hall's being built. So I went out and talked to the person. It's like, the old city hall had mold and it's built in 1978, and, gave them all the facts on City Hall. And I go, by the way, all these people with me right now, they all work here part-time. We all have other jobs that we do. So this is our part-time thing. We're just out here in case someone falls or has a heart attack or, okay. They get it when, I love converting people over, that's one of the flanks. So we have to have all these different flanks covered. And if you expect the fire chief to do this, the crews really should be aiming for the same goal, but also treating customers in a way that is going to complement the ways that the fire chief's trying to get you the resources or back up your department or do whatever. You're smiling.
I just think of the times that customer service has gone bad and how that stink lingers in an organization for like 10 years. And I hired in Glendale. They were still talking about an event where a firefighter punched a guy on a gurney and shouldn't have done it. Wasn't managed very well by the fire chief. Nice fire chief. He didn't manage it. Good dude. Didn't manage it. And
good dude.
And anyway, I'm not going to beat him up, but that was his style. And I paid for that for the 5, 6, 7 years I was in Glendale. I heard about that one incident where you guys slugged these guys, mentally challenged guys on gurneys. No, we don't. That guy did. And if I would have been the fire chief here, that guy wouldn't have had a chance to do that again, going through a process of education. Either he learned not to do that Or if he didn't learn not to do that, he was going to do something else other than be a firefighter. So I just think that, if we would realize at the company level that every call, man, you can send your department into a nosedive. And I think the unions that get that and talk about that as part of their message at the union meetings, because people get pretty engaged with the union. They can say things to the union chief that they're not going to say to the fire chief. It's just that whole rank type thing. But if the union gets the same message as the fire chief, you can eliminate all of that, because we're responsible to each other. And you see it all the time. I have people coming in and say, "Did you hear what this fire department did in Oklahoma, you damn firefighters?" I mean, it goes all the way across the country, poor
In Hong Kong. Did you see what happened in Hong Kong?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
Well, I'm going to go one deeper here on.
Oh, don't go deeper.
Yeah, recently there was a 19-year-old firefighter who was being hazed in a fire station.
Oh, Vance, that's the big one.
This is before 911 gets called. This is your business within the walls of your firehouse, and they are hazing this kid to the point of they were waterboarding him. And when you talk about recovery from a negative press event, how long is it going to take this fire department now to that's all the community's going to think about when it comes to, it's like these, you want to talk about screwing around inside the fire. We have so much discretionary time that we can waterboard each other and hang upside down in the hose tower.
I got to tell you, if you watch
sodomy is always part of that.
Yeah.
If you watch that event and the press conference, it was the worst press conference I've ever seen for a fire chief. Because he's standing 2 steps back with a group of people in the city, and the police chief is standing up front saying, "This will not going to happen. I'm going to get these guys. This shouldn't be allowed." And the police chief should not be the lead voice on that. And oh man, when I was watching that, I was having the shakes. There's no way that.
So what would you say if you were the fire chief?
I would have said exactly what the police chief said as the fire chief. Like, no, we don't treat each other like this. This isn't going to this isn't going to happen again. Those people will be managed either in or out of the system. In this case, from what I learned, out of the system. There's no second chance management when you stick something up somebody's backside, right? There's no second chance of that.
There's not a whole lot of sodomy in the HR manual.
No.
Yeah.
So,
it's frowned on.
Yeah. We don't have an algorithm to overcome that.
In fact, it's better when something comes out that is so egregious that you could just fire them right there. Because sometimes, we're going to.
I don't know if that's a good thing.
No, but what I'm saying is, for the fire chief, it's like a low-hanging fruit. I'm getting rid of those guys. And sometimes you got to go, they're going to be on leave pending investigation because they did this and this and this. When they shove something up somebody, now they're gone today. They no longer have a shirt that says this fire department.
Well, but you said it. There's a system. So, and the investigation may only take a day. I don't know, but there's
process.
Yeah. Whatever the process is, a lot of times we know within the first hour that, no, this happened, this is bad, this has to be dealt with now.
Yeah.
And I think what that leads us to, which is dangerous, is just jumping right to it.
Right.
And because then you skip the you need to investigate, but I've investigated for 10 minutes and I know this happened, and this is what we're going to do now.
No, you're right. You say that. That's absolutely important.
Yeah.
And then the worst case scenario is they get released, and then it goes through a process. The worst case with them coming back. But on the front end, you did the right thing on the front end. So don't be afraid of. Get those people out of.
Well, and that's
system.
the problem. If you shortcut the process of doing whatever you're going to have to do, and then it gets overturned, they're resurrected now. And so you've got somebody who you wanted out of the organization, and they have a certain immunity now to future. They won the last time. You don't want to put yourself in that position as the supervisor.
But that's a bad one.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
And Bruno would say, if you're going to if you want to know how our organization's going to deal
Right.
with something really bad, look at what they were doing 2.5 weeks before it
Right,
happened.
we said that.
And I would say even before someone calls 911, look at what the organization is doing before someone calls us. And if there's a lot of dysfunction going on inside your walls, and not just the hazing and that kind of frat behavior, but also the dysfunctional behavior where people are out to get each other, people are pitting each other, all those bad things that happen.
It's all political.
Yeah, and you're not going to deliver good service. It's not going to happen.
Silverback leadership program, the chapter is inside outside customer service. And we say that like inside outside, and you kind of just say that openly, but really think about that. The inside and the outside, they have to mirror each other, because if you're not being nice to each other on the inside, it's not gonna work well on the outside.
Well,
and vice versa.
and at least in the example we used, I don't think you want to be doing sodomy to the customers.
No.
I mean that's
No.
So like on the inside, if that's the way we're treating each other, I don't know. That's going to be hard to spill over. I mean, then you're going to have the police chief actually
But
giving the press conference
if you
because
treat people like they're not people on the inside, you're going to treat people that you don't even know even worse.
yeah,
And whatever you can get away with.
yeah, exactly. Whatever the accepted thing is within your organization. Well, Vance, but I'll go back even to what you alluded to before. Even worse than that are these make-believe fire departments. That it's like I got all these stations with all this apparatus, but there's nobody to drive it and get it on a call. So, or let alone a team of people that can show up and actually do something with my emergency. I mean, that's so you're not even able to do a call. And I think the other thing, what we're talking about here is that you have the force to do it. They're just misbehaving to the point that there's no adult supervision going on. And those, it's notorious in those systems. I mean, when they're talking about it in stations, about have you roved into station 20? Well, no, why? Well, this is what they do to the recruits there. Oh, okay. Well, when that makes it up, it's gone through like the task level, the tactical level, the strategic level. Now it's getting to the executive level. See, because most fire departments are run by an executive level that doesn't do much with the strategic level, especially bigger fire departments. That's okay, they do the operations here and we run the fire department here. So, and that creates its own disconnect.
Yeah, that's
it's like, no, I'm the fire chief and I'm whatever it is. And so you're like, well, yeah, then if you're the fire chief, you represent the people that call 911 and the workers that roll 911. I mean, that's your world. But you have to do that with the politicians because that's the way the world is shaped today. So it always has been, I suppose.
And I think if these 8 functions of customer service aren't coming together, you're not going to be able to either have that quick, skillful outcome that people are seeking, which is really we're letting them down on the first promise that we made by putting fire department on the side of our vehicles.
Yeah, the prevention of harm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
See, again, we're responsible for preventing harm once it starts occurring. We have fire prevention divisions that are supposed to do it before to prevent harm truly from happening. So if you're reviewing the plans for a big building and there's a sprinkler system, if there's ever a fire in it, you've reduced harm because you saved all the property and people that were in the building. So I think that, like you said, you start there and then...
What is, man, I'm getting old. The word that is used in law when you, I know the word, it's right on the tip of my tongue, but you're going to tell me. Whistleblower.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. I got it. Okay, I'm not as old. I get it. My coffee.
It's not your age, Norm Crosby. It's just you.
Yeah, right? It is me. It's the beer. So, whistleblower. It is so, I guess, prevalent in the American workforce that when you see something wrong and you tell somebody about it, they had to create a law to protect you as the person who told. That's a whistleblower, right? Mm-hmm. They created an entire law around this because out of fear for retribution when you see something and say something. that needs to be a fundamental piece of the organizational culture, is that if you see something and you don't say something, now we have a problem. That you need to let your employees know, firefighters know, that if you see something, it's okay to say. You're going to be protected not from the whistleblower, but from me as the fire chief, from the admin, from the executive level. Because, like you said, you made me think of it, Nick, because people know what's happening in fire stations, and the chief may not know, but somebody within that organization knows. And we really need to be able to create a culture that we can talk to each other and say, hey, do you realize this is happening? And then that needs to be managed.
Well, the further the fire chief gets away from knowing what's going on in stations, the further you are no longer controlling the fire department. Right. I mean, you're disconnected from the main part. You know, JV, you talked about the horseplay and this public thing and the effect it's going to have on the fire department. The other piece of news that just is going through the transom is recently there was a jury award of $31 million in a line of duty case in Illinois. And those, I want to say there were two communities involved in that suit, and they had a total population of about 15,000 between those two communities where that fire occurred. And so I don't know who ends up being responsible for that, but I'm going to guess that those two communities combined do not spend that much money a year for the government. So essentially what happened is because they allowed, with the death, that line of duty death, and the details of that, once that went into a court, a jury was 3 hours of deliberation, and they came back with that award. So that says something.
Because you failed the families. That was the award, right?
Well, you basically, it was just a notch. The way I interpret it is a notch below manslaughter, and then it was so egregious that this is what happened. See, and there's laws to protect fire departments against that, and they demonstrate it to the level that the jury says, no, we're skipping over that. This is unacceptable, and we're going to make a point here. So, but that is, I'm going to say that's more egregious to those communities than what happened with the fun and game. Neither one of them should happen. Don't get me wrong there, but that's the other side of it. They're like, well, so the chief may think I don't condone this, and I would never allow this, and I manage my department in a way where this kind of nonsense can't happen in the fire station. But a lot of those same places, this will happen over here. Is when you start looking at some of the details of that. I mean, it was like the top 5 NIOSH deals. I mean, it was just glaring and flashing. And so, and that's what, I mean, that's just kind of what happened. So that kind of becomes the barometer for the future. Well, many politicians are lawyers too, right? So now you have the lawyers who see, okay, there is the latest payday right there. Well, do you think that's going to become more prevalent, or it's going to die down, these kind of suits?
They're going to be more. Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to say if you're one of the survivors of the last 2 or 3 years, and I hear this, is they're starting to go back because of this. So it's going to create its own industry moving forward that is going to be, I think it may change the way you start doing business. We talked about this with like riding on tailboards, and when that ended, and it was a court trial that put a fire truck company out of business. Mm-hmm. And you don't ride the tailboard anymore. That was just what happened. Well, I think the more and more you see of this, it's going to have a similar effect.
Nick, you made me think of something. So we have NIOSH who comes in and they report on a line. We do.
Yeah, who knows what we got now.
Say the history of it. They come in and they report on a line of duty death. Mm-hmm. And they came up with these 5 reasons, the 5 most common reasons, things that occur. There's going to be in the future, if these kind of goofy stuff, shoving stuff up your rear end, there's going to be a similar organization. And can you imagine that? That's going to look at what failed within that organization to allow that to occur at that level. And there's going to be 5 things, maybe 8, that they're going to find out this culture is prevalent within your organization because of these 8 things. And we have them on this card here. And I think these are the 8 things.
Yeah.
And the number 1 thing is that the fire chief doesn't manage, just like the incident commander, if you're not looking out for the safety of everybody within that hazard zone, if the fire chief's not looking out for the welfare of everybody within that organization, you're going to come up with these 5 things. So when you think about that, and the key to the 5 areas is that they're, what Gordon Graham say?
Predictable and preventable. Yeah.
Same thing organizationally. If you just carry on the way and ignore the way people treat each other in your organization and ignore these predictable, if you're not nice to the customer, if you get 2 or 3, I'm a fire chief and I get 1 or 2 or 3 not nice things happening to the customer, I'm going to go back and say, uh-oh, what's going on? Is this a cultural deal? Because it's more than just an aberrancy. Where are we dropping the ball? And we got to get in front of that. So,
well, I think like the system we grew up in, where every year you had an annual performance evaluation.
Yeah.
Well, that was just a bullshit thing. It was a window dressing deal. Yeah. And even the form, like the city, the city HR people made the form up that we used.
It's checking a box.
And then we twisted it a little bit as the fire department, but even as chiefs, we got performance achievement. And so, you would get a little bigger raise or a little less raise, depending. And I think a lot of organizational just stuff in the world, there's different ways. And I think one of the primary is I punch down and I kiss up. So if you work for me, I'm going to be a strong boss. Yeah. Like one of my son-in-laws, if you will, used to work at a giant computer chip factory here. And you would talk to him about his work, and it wasn't none of this. Zero. Is their whole deal was whatever product they made, and if you did not support that 24 hours a day, well, they would ship you back to the country you came from, which is a whole nother thing going on in today's economic world. But he ended up quitting because he despised his bosses. They were clowns. And when you really talk to him about it, he says they don't know how to make chips right, let alone, and now they're dealing with people. He says it's like math professors teaching psychology. They can't do it. It's not working. So, and you see the effect in the waste and all the other things. You think, just be nice to one another. And I said, no, that's not the way business works. He said, you have been clouded with what you do. And that's probably good then. I'm going to keep clouding. But
there's a lot of private companies not owned by hedge funds that do treat people right.
Oh, they're tremendous. Yeah. Most of them aren't owned by hedge funds. That's why they treat people the way.
I work for one.
Oh, yeah. That's where we do, right?
Right here.
Yeah. You're going like, where's Terry working? You got a part-time job? We don't know about.
Yeah. Are you doing decking now? I'm thinking, okay. Well, yeah, but I don't know. This is a different thing altogether.
Yeah. This doesn't feel like we're getting paid.
Yeah.
All right.
But I'll speak to that as we're doing what we want to do. This is what
you don't want to do this. Don't be here.
This is our. I don't know. We've cooked this into our lives. It's the way we live, and it's occupational. It's just, I don't know.
It's a round table.
Yeah, God damn it. What the hell?
All right.
It's steel and walnut.
He's got a copy.
Bottom line is always attempt to execute a standard problem-solving outcome. That's what we need to do in order
we have, I think, danced all the way around the table and never really stepped on the snake in the middle.
I need a sandwich.
Yeah, God damn it.
We'll be back, though, for that.
Well, this is the fun of being us.
Cut that.
Hey, you want to do a timeless tactical truth before we go?
Every day.
Now. All right, let's do it. Timeless Tactical Truth from Alan Brunacini, and these books are available for $10 at the B Shifter store. Go to bshifter.com. And today's Timeless Tactical Truth: if you can't control yourself, there is a really good chance that you can't control anything or anybody else.
Yes.
And I think we talked about that earlier about chili peppers and silliness around the station.
Leadership is not about control, and I'm going to get a lot of responses from people on this one.
Let's go viral, baby.
Leadership is not about control, it's about influence. And the best way to influence somebody is to show them the correct way and support them and help them get that done. Not controlling them and beating them up. And usually that comes because for some reason in a person's life, I don't know, I'm probably going to go deeper than I should. Somewhere along the way, that when these control freak people, they did not have control of something that they wanted. And it stuck with them so bad that they say, if I ever get in a position of power, I'm going to do it. You know, the guy who wrote the book, Buddy the Boss.
Chase Sargent.
Yeah. He ought to write another one called From Bully to Boss. Because I've seen that where people don't change maybe when he promotes, he'll be a nicer person. No, he's going to go from being a bully,
worse.
and he's going to be your boss, and now he's a bully with positional power.
He punches down and sideways.
And personal power. So, yeah, I really believe that Buddy the Boss is a really good thing because I was your friend, and now I can look you in the face and say, don't do that. That's wrong, right?
So, sometimes when I was a firefighter, I'd make comments without getting my ass kicked for, I don't know how that happened, but I had a captain and I said to him once, I go, who hurt you? Because he was just so angry.
Yeah.
And I get it. You know, he was a war veteran and everything. You know, they're different generation, but it's like
toe blown off.
Yeah, but it's like, don't bring that to work.
Yeah.
Don't bring
it to potatoes work, in the military. Yeah. Come on. Yeah, let's get over it. You know, I promoted to avoid being supervised by people I don't want to be supervised by.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's really kind of...
That's what inspired me.
I didn't do it so I could be in charge of people. In fact, that was probably... That wasn't my strong suit, being in charge of other people. But I was... Yeah.
But you did find the higher you went up in your organization, the more influence you had over more people.
Yeah, without a doubt.
And if you don't get that piece, then you've lost some. Yeah, you can.
Well, and you could go in and talk to them as another B shifter, and you could. They got it.
Buddy the Boss.
I could connect. I connected in a way that I didn't have to be an asshole. In fact, I was really good at putting that right back on them. I'm here because you made me be here. Yeah. Well, you only come by when we're in trouble. It's because you're. No, a lot of times I don't come by and it keeps you out of trouble.
I had to put on pants to come here today.
Yeah, for the love of God. In fact, I'm not even wearing them now. Come out to the car.
I always say I'd rather be here for pie and coffee than what I'm here about right now.
Yeah. So I mean, but it went well. Yeah, and there was. See, it was never terminal. You never wanted it to. I'm not gonna. Well, a few times it was, but that was because of them. I thought you made bad decisions. I'm gonna. In fact, there were a few times you protected the fire department. It's like, no, you should retire. There was a couple guys I told retire. If you retire, it's so much harder to take your pension away. And I said, right now, the police are looking for you. So there's no anything.
Relationships.
Well, and they would ask. They said, "Well, God, he just retired. Well, what happened?" And I don't know. I wouldn't even take credit for it. It beats me.
Came to a census.
And the ranking guy would say, "Well, thank God he's not here. We don't have to deal with that."
Yeah.
Said, "Yeah, he ain't going to be in the newspaper." And he's former.
Taking care of problems on the lowest level possible.
100%, man.
And keeping a good, strong relationship when possible. Because once that's broke, you're done. You go around making enemies, putting people on a list like some people do. Gosh dang, that's wrong.
Yeah.
Well, see, we go back to the evaluation. You could change the evaluation would be like something. Like the citizens' complaints. I always had a hard-on for citizens' complaints because most of it was people calling in. They went code 3 through the intersection. They got to the other side and they turned their lights off. Right. And then they turned down a side street. Well, why is this a complaint to me? That they were going on a call. I could see the call they were going on. They got canceled, and then they made it through the intersection and turned around. Well, you just call the person back and tell them that. I said, no. Whoever answered the phone should have told them. It shouldn't take a month for me to call them back and let them know that. 40% of my citizens' complaints are this.
I actually stopped calling those complaints in one organization and say that's a citizen inquiry. Don't put that down. Because look at all the citizen complaints. Those aren't complaints.
No.
They're asking a question that they think they have a complaint, but when you give them the answer, it's not a complaint. It's something valid took place. That's an inquiry.
Well, and that's where the union come back and they say 90% of the citizens' complaints were exonerated on.
Yeah.
And I said, that's because 50% of them are inquiries.
Yeah.
I said, in fact, I'm going to say 60 to 70 you're guilty of that are real complaints. They actually happened.
Right.
So, and they're like, well, hey, no, you can't do that because it's going to screw the numbers up for us. And you're like, well... Okay, you're not doing your job anymore. We're making shit up as we go. Stop it.
Well, you guys, if we don't, we probably won't get back together again until the holidays. So happy holidays.
Happy
Yeah,
holidays.
that's it, man.
Thanks for being here today.
Yeah, probably 2026 will be the next time we well.
Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Yes.
Well, I hope we're all here again next year.
I'm not going to. You want to go okay?
Well, no, I'm talking about like physically.
Oh, yeah.
It's alive.
I look at the camera every once in a while and see myself and think, he's not going to make it. That guy's on his way out.
Well, he's got a goatee going like a colonel from the Civil War.
I'm trying to hide my turkey neck is what I'm trying to do.
All right, before we
look old. I look like I should
Turtlenecks.
want him to live underwater.
before we start making more faces to the camera, thank you for listening to B Shifter. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.